Welcome to Immigrate. Welcome to a space where you can be vulnerable, a space where you're not going to be judged, a space where you can be authentic. And my hope and desire is to inspire and motivate everyone that click onto this podcast. So, welcome to another episode of Immigrate. So, welcome to another great episode of Immigrate. I'm so excited to have this wonderful guest with me, and she is so delighted. She's smiling she's like a ray of sunshine. And welcome to my podcast. Welcome to Immigrate.
Thank you so much for having me. I am super excited to be here.
Thank you. So, who am I? What's your name? Where are you from?
My name is Crunch Ranjani, and I was born and raised in the traditional lands of the Orang Laut people, which has been colonized as Singapore. And I live in Mexico, the traditional lands of the Mexica, Nahuatl, and Totonac people in a region called Veracruz. And so that's a little short story of like a short blurb about who I am and where I come from.
I watched that movie. What's the movie called? With the guy from I forget the Mexican movie I watched. You know that popular Mexican movie they had with Dela Cruz in it with the musician that
Uh,
died?
no, I don't.
I forgot. Yeah,
Coco, the
Coco.
Disney
There you
Pixar
go.
movie.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
It was one of my favorite. Yeah, I watched it like 3 times.
it's a good movie.
It was a good movie. Yeah. Okay. So where did you move from? You moved from Singapore to Mexico?
Yes, in a very short sense, yes, but also no, because for the last 10 years or so, just about 10 years, I have been living a very nomadic lifestyle. So I was born and raised in Singapore, and then after I finished my university education and like saved some money, I decided that I wanted to travel and see the world. So I went to travel around South America and Central America, and then I was in Europe for a while, in Asia for a while, and I did a lot of different things around the world in different parts of the world before finally ending up kind of in Mexico. In I moved to Mexico in 2020. So I've been there for about 3 years, but it was a long process of like going to a whole bunch of other places before I finally ended up in Mexico. Um, yeah, and it wasn't an easy journey to kind of like end up in Mexico, I would say. Like I've always felt like I don't fit into Singapore's culture here. I was born and raised here, and my family is from here. Like we're third, fourth generation Singaporeans. So my family has long roots and history here in Singapore, but I've never felt like the culture of the country has been something that, works for me because Singapore's a very like hectic, fast-paced lifestyle. It's stressful. It's kind of like just about any other large metropolitan city in the world. And I don't like that. Right? Like I like a slower pace of life, less hectic, less frantic, more time with friends, more time to, relax and more time to just like enjoy life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I found that I couldn't get here. So my last 10 years have been like a journey of exploring where I could find that. And I found some of that in Mexico. So I'm very grateful for
So
Mexico for being my new home.
do Oh, okay. So do you want to get into why then, in a little sentence, like why did you think, well, you kind of touch on it. Why did you think Mexico was home? I want to gear more because I feel like you're surfacing it, but I want to know why because Singapore I mean, most people know about it and Mexico is popular, but yeah, why? Because I'm looking at you right
So
now, but I'm like, you look like a Mexican. So I don't, yeah, you do. Like yeah.
I always tell people that like I'm like Mexican at heart. So maybe like I was just born in a different body or in a different country. And I'm very grateful for all of the things and opportunities that have come with like where I was born in Singapore and all of that. But ultimately, so like you asked about like the deeper reason why I moved to Mexico, and it's actually kind of like a, I guess it's not a super exciting story. Like I moved to Mexico because my ex partner is from Mexico, right? So he was from Mexico and he lived there, and he was like, "Why don't you come to Mexico and hang out here, and then we can see if this works." And then I was with him and living there, and started building my life and community and everything there. And then we broke up like 5 months ago,
Oh, I'm so
and
sorry.
that was when. Thank you. I appreciate that. And that was when kind of like I had to make a decision, right? Like because I had moved to Mexico to be with him, and now I was no longer with him. So like my reason for being in Mexico was now gone, right?
Yeah.
For like in a very like basic kind of like dimension, like that was my reason for being in Mexico. And up till that point, I had considered Mexico kind of my home, but it was always more his home, and I was just there because he was there. Like
Mm.
it wasn't my home. Like I didn't think of it as my home at that, like until the moment like that the breakup happened. And then I was processing the end of the relationship, but also like having this moment of like, well, do I want to stay in this city in Mexico, or do I want to go somewhere else in Mexico and start
Mm.
all over from scratch? Or do I want to leave the country and go to a different country and completely like, you know, burn all the bridges that I had built in Mexico in this 3 years that I had already been there, right? So in the end, I finally decided that like I did feel like I was at home and that I was comfortable in the city that I was living in. And I realized that in the aftermath of the breakup, when like my friends started reaching out to me with words of like support and encouragement, and to say like,
Mhm.
"Hey, Crunch, like we're here for you, we're supporting you, like whatever you need, we are here." Like I
That's
have
nice.
friends who helped me look for a new apartment, who helped me move. And I think that
Mm.
for me was when it really like hit home that this is where my home is. Like I have people who are here for me. And that I think to me is
A
maybe like the
confirmation.
truest definition of home,
Yeah.
right? Like home is
Like you
where you
feel
feel
the deep.
supported.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have a community, right? So for me to see that, like, you look like they're not just here because of my partner, right? Like a lot of these people were people I knew through him, but then like in the aftermath of the breakup, they had chosen to come and hang out with me, and like to be my friend. And that was for me like, oh my goodness, wow, okay, so I do have like community support and a home here if I choose to continue building my home here. And that was when I kind of like realized that home is not really like where you are as much as where you build, right? Like where you build those relationships, where you build that community, and where you put in into the, like when you foster the relationships around you so that when you need them, they are there to like hold you up and sustain you. So that's that's the deeper
It's
reason of
true.
why Mexico.
So then how so your family's still in Singapore, right? Like all your family's still there. Are they mad at you that you moved to
That's
Mexico or they're
correct.
disappointed?
Uh, I think when I first started traveling, they were very concerned and confused, I think, because they didn't understand like why I would leave Singapore. Because like, I mean, on the surface, like Singapore seems amazing, right? Like it's got great education, it's very safe, it's very clean, it's wonderful. Like everybody loves Singapore. Like, why would you leave? Right? But I just felt that there was a disconnect and I needed to find somewhere different to be. So they were confused and upset at the beginning, and then 10 years later, now they're just kind of like, well, I guess this is what you've chosen, and this is your path. And as long as you're safe and healthy and fine, like,
Yeah.
I guess it's okay, So
Yeah, yeah, because I can see how they will be worried about that for sure. Um, I mean, everywhere have their crime and violence, but I could see. So then, what do you think was the most complex? I know you mentioned, and I'm very sorry about hearing you break up because breakups are never easy. But what do you think was the most complex of your move and doing this transition?
so I moved possibly. in a very uncomfortable time to move. So I moved to Mexico in October of 2020, which is when
Mhm.
like the pandemic was full blown, like lockdowns everywhere. Mexico was one of the very few countries that you could actually travel into. So, I got to Mexico and I didn't know anybody apart from my now ex-partner, and it was very isolating. It was very, very difficult to meet people because there were no social events that I could go to, right? Like everything was on lockdown, like restaurants were shut. There were no like meetup groups or activity groups. Everybody was just indoors and like, just doing their own thing. So at that time, it was great to be with my partner, but then also after a while, I started feeling like, oh my goodness, I don't have any friends here. And it was a very alienating and isolating experience that I would not wish for anybody. um, but yeah, eventually I managed. So around that same time, I realized that I needed to find community in some way, and I started looking at like online communities. And that's when I started like focusing on building my business and finding a community for my business side of life. Because life is many different roles that we play, right? So for me, because I couldn't have my active social life in person, I started looking online to kind of like find people in the entrepreneurship world or like that kind of stuff. And I started like getting more involved in that area as a way to kind of like balance the fact that I had no real life friends. So that was very challenging, and eventually I did feel like I integrated more into life in my community there, as things started opening up a little bit more. I could start going to yoga classes, and that's when I met like some people. I went to help out and volunteer at a community garden where it's outdoors, so like people were wearing masks, but also like
Mhm.
working in the earth and like building that kind of
Yeah.
community vibe. That was nice. And then I
Mhm.
went to some different community events that were mostly like outdoors, and in doing those things outside of, and it
Mhm.
did take like a lot of conscious effort. I would say that
Mhm.
that's one thing that I would advise anybody about, is that like it takes a concerted effort on your part to actually make friends. And I think making friends as an adult is much more difficult than like in
Oh yeah.
kindergarten, where you're
Mhm.
just like, do you want to be my friend? Here's a
I
crayon,
know.
and then like your best friends for life.
I know. I know. So that
Right.
so
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 it
you
does take
think
like a
the
lot more effort.
pandemic was the hardest for you in the transition?
I would say so, yeah, because I mean, I would say I'm a fairly outgoing person. I'm quite extroverted. I like my own alone time, but I also do like going to like social events and like meeting new people and talking to them. And I think like, people find me an easy person to talk to. And, so like, I think it's easy for me to make friends, and I've never had that problem. In the 7 years before the pandemic that I was traveling, like I never had that problem of like, oh no, I feel so alone. But like the pandemic, moving to a different country or new community during the pandemic was very, very isolating. And I think like that was really the hardest for me.
So how do you think your young self would look at you right now and say, what would you think your young self would say about your transition? Would they be happy? Would they be disappointed? But how would
I think my younger self would be pretty damn pleased
Oh, nice, nice.
about how I've grown. I think
Mm-hmm.
because when I was a child, I was very timid. I was very shy. I was the child who was always like
No
hiding
way.
next to her mom. Like
Yeah.
I would never speak to anybody. Like I had such a big fear of talking to anybody. um, so I spent a lot of my childhood just like hiding in different corners of the house, and like hoping nobody would find me so that I didn't have to
Mm-hmm.
talk to anybody. And
Right.
nowadays, like I'm getting on podcasts and talking like to a complete stranger on the internet. Oh,
I
and I do
know.
this in real life too, right?
I know. It's yeah.
So
I feel you, girl. Like you're speaking my language right now. Oh, that's good. That's good. It's always good that your young self will be proud of. the person that you are, because when we're young, we don't even think about these things that we're getting ourselves into. So, what encouragement would you bring to an immigrant that's actually listening to a podcast right now and like, I want to move, regardless of wherever you want to move to? What would you encourage them and say? Stuff will happen when you move, but you have to do it. What would you encourage them and tell them?
That's a very good question. I think I would say, like whatever your reason for immigrating, I guess try to hold on to that because that's what's maybe going to get you through the difficult parts, because there's definitely going to be difficult situations, right? Like whether that's having trouble integrating into the local community or making new friends, or just like adapting to a completely different lifestyle, um, or whatever the circumstances are. Like you have a reason that you've chosen to leave one place that you were familiar with and comfortable with and go to somewhere new and like try to integrate into that new community. So like focus on that reason why. And I think another thing to remember is that these things are not easy and you have to make the first move. This is something that my coach has been reminding me of recently as I kind of put together my new transformational travel coaching practice, is that he keeps telling me like the universe wants to help you, but you have to go first, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you have to take the first action of, whether that's reaching out to people to say like, hey, can we start like a meetup, or like, hey, do you want to go for coffee, or like whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like whatever it is that you do to reach out to start building that community, or making those friendships that will ultimately sustain you in your time abroad and
Mm-hmm.
make it a fulfilling journey. But you have to be the person to take that first step and like extend that first branch, for example, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that is valuable advice that I'm still working on at the moment.
Yeah.
Of trying to go first and like trying to reach out to people to say like, hey, can we catch up? And it feels awkward, right? Like I'm not
It
going to
does.
deny that it doesn't feel awfully awkward sometimes when you're just like, hey, do you want to meet up for coffee? And then you're like worried that they will say no or that they will ignore
Mm-hmm.
you, which feels worse
Mm-hmm.
than saying no.
Mm-hmm.
And and then that's that rejection that you set yourself up for, right? But if you don't have that at all, then there's no room for
Mm-hmm.
something potentially magical to occur, right? Like you never know. Like a stranger is just a friend that you haven't met yet. So,
True.
like why not say hi and reach out and take that
I
first
love your
step?
perspective on that. It's true. A lot of people, yeah. I always think I have the gift to just talk to random people. I will talk to anybody I see. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. My husband is like the opposite of me, right? So when I'm like, hello, let's go. And I'm like, no. I'm like, I will just say hello and then I want to know where you are, who, where, I'm that type of person too. So I get it. It's always, and it's right. People want to see you. People want to see you and want you to talk to them. So sometimes you never know what the outcome might be. So thank you for that. I just want to thank you for being so vulnerable and authentic with your story. And I know there's more to this story, and you're just surfing it over it, but that's okay. That's okay. Um,
I mean, we only
I
got 20 minutes. If we have two
I
hours,
know
then maybe I'll dig in some more.
that could be something that we work into. We can get, and I know it's late on your side too, so we don't want to keep you up for too long. So, what else do you think you want to share? And as I'm wrapping up, how has your spiritual journey has impacted your journey right now?
I think I don't know. I mean, like, I would say that I'm a person who's quite spiritual, and it's something that I'm still working on is listening to kind of the messages from the universe about where I am and what I should be doing. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I'm pretty good about, like listening to signs from the universe, or like understanding what messages are being conveyed to me from a higher power or from something bigger than myself, right? So for the last 10 years that I was traveling, and I was mostly just kind of traveling because I had this intense desire to see the world and meet as many people as possible. And people kept asking me, like, why are you doing this? Like, why do you want to travel so much? Like, haven't you been to like so many countries, and isn't it enough? Like, and for some reason I just never felt like it was. And I just felt like I don't know why I'm doing it, but I feel like this need to travel, right? And in the recent few months prior, like, I've been starting to see the direction that the universe has led me to is kind of to offer this space of support and a safe space for other women who want to discover themselves or reconnect to themselves through travel. Because that's ultimately like what travel has done for me. It's been a space for me to understand who I am, what I want to do, like what my desires are, what I like and what I don't like, right? Like to learn a lot about myself, and to also reconnect with that independence, with that self trust, with that self confidence, to move through the world as a person who knows that I can take care of myself. I got this. Everything is going in my favor. And no matter what comes my way, I can take care of myself and get out of it. Like, that has been immense. And that has been something that travel has given me. And now I feel like this is why I've been traveling all this while, is to collect all of these experiences so that I can support other women in doing something similar. Because I think society tells women all the time, like, you're fragile, you should stay at home, you should be in this locked box, like, because if you go outside, you're going to get raped, you're going to get killed, you're going to get robbed. All these bad things are going to happen. So don't ever leave your home. Like, always be in the company of a male person, right? Like, don't travel by yourself. And it pigeonholes us into such a small box, and it doesn't allow us to feel confident. And then we go out and we're like, oh no, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know how to navigate life on my own or exist in the world, right? Like, I need somebody to tell me what to do. But we don't, right? Like, all of these things within you, you have that information and that knowledge within you. And whatever you don't have, the universe has your back on, right? So we just have to take that leap of faith and go for it. And I think, being able to support women in doing that, like taking that leap of faith and like pursuing whatever it is they want to pursue, right, is so important. And if I can be, a small part of a woman's journey and like reconnecting to herself, independence and self-confidence and self-trust, like, that would have been my work on this earth.
Oh, that's amazing. While you were talking, I remember because I make candles now too, and one of my candles is about travels. Like I pick countries that people would love to go to. So people love to go to Hawaii. I have three main scents right now: Hawaii, the Caribbean, and Canada. Of course, I'm here. So and that's what I always say to people. The reason I create these fragrance is because a lot of us can't travel, and you hit it on the point, right? We're afraid. So what I do with these candles is to introduce these scents into people's homes. And I was like, this is what you smell when you travel. You know what I mean? And these fragrance will bring you the traveling
Right.
experience. Like it will not stop you from traveling. Like if you want to go to Hawaii, you're like, okay, I want to experience this. I want to experience the Caribbean before going. And yeah, so while you were talking, I'm like, man, this is the reason I created this podcast. And in turn, with my candle business too, is like, this is the experience. People need to understand that it's all an experience. You don't have to be afraid because that Roman that you want to
Hmm.
experience all of that. And it's true. Once we do all those things, it makes us into the person that we are. And you're so resilient, and you're not afraid to talk to people. And I'm sure that's what travel brought out of you, right? So, yeah. Three words would you like to leave with my guests today before you leave?
3 words.
Yeah.
I'm gonna steal a slogan from Nike and say, just do it. Whatever it is that has been calling to you, that has been on your heart, like whether that's taking a trip or, picking up a new hobby or telling somebody your true feelings about them, like whatever that's been calling to you, that you have that gut feeling like this is something I need to do, like just do it. Because I mean, we're here for a good time, not for a long time. I mean, we don't know when we're gonna be called away from this planetary plane of
Mm-hmm.
existence. And,
Mm-hmm.
maybe there won't be a tomorrow for any of us, right? So why not
Mm-hmm.
make the most of what you have today and just do it, just go for it.
That's true. That was my first topic, actually. That was my first topic on my podcast. Just do it. Like, just don't think about it, just do it.
Yeah.
Because as you said, you never know. You never know. And I just want to thank you again to be so authentic and just to be honest and to just be. We don't judge around here, and I love your conversation. And if you want, we could come back on a second season because it's gonna be bigger and it's gonna be longer. So I love to chat. I know we had a really hard time connecting and making this work for us, but we finally made it. So thank you so much for coming on my podcast. And yeah, we'll definitely.
Thank you so
Anything
much for
else you
having
want to
me. It's
add?
been great.
Anything else you want to add?
Have a wonderful journey.
Thank you so much.